All right. Let's see how this works out this time. So, I suppose this is the second day. Bit of coffee. The subject today is personal studies and a reflection on turning points. So, well, I suppose like basically anyone who is healthy as a kid has some kind of history with running around and playing and this sort of thing. So that's not to say that I have any kind of special history with being particularly athletic or into particular types of training as a kid that stands out or is particularly unusual. I think the first real kind of turn of things was as a young man being in high school. I was in a traffic accident and I broke my femur and my tibia, and I spent the better part of a year rehabbing that. So it was kind of like the first instance of coming into contact with medicine, with physical therapy, with rehabilitation. And I think like I engage with that process more than is normal. I'd say like put quite a lot of energy into my rehab to get better again, rather than just not doing anything, which is also quite common. So during that high school, a year or year and a half later, I had a meniscus tear on the other leg, and then it was more or less the same story that took me probably like 6 months of rehab to get full function back in that leg. So I spent the better part of being in high school having various physical problems and having to rehab them, and I think that was kind of the first spark of something in that realm besides just what everyone else goes through, I suppose. Then fast forward to being a young man and being confused about what to do with life. I shopped around, tried various things, and nothing really stuck with me. But there was something with the body that I kept coming back to, and I was, for the longest time, had a debate: should I study sports science? Should I study physiotherapy, medicine, whatever? So at the end of that whole like thinking about what to do, I ended up actually applying for medicine and getting accepted. And I obviously had certain ideas about what medicine is and what you would learn and like what that whole process would entail. And yeah, like there was various things in that experience that I'm not sure what to say about it other than it was a difficult time, and there was things that I was learning about myself throughout this that I had to process, and clearly also like what I thought medicine was, and indeed what medicine could be, is they're not quite the same. There's often these, like today you have these memes with like 15 things doctors don't tell you, or they didn't teach you that in medical school, kind of meme format. And like that's not to put fuel onto the conspiratorial fire or to say that things are being deliberately withheld, but there's definitely something with what I do and what I'm interested in where what our society allows, I think, is the better way to think about it. Like what we can entertain as an acceptable way to look at things definitely puts a charge onto these studies. So medicine is a good example. Like how, like medicine, that question of like how do you bring about health in a human being. And you can look at health system from other cultures, like If you look at something like Ayurveda, they would have a lot more where like seeking to instill balance in a human being, and I think that was without me being conscious of it at the time, that was what I was looking for in medicine. That was also what led to the shopping around before. Like that was what I was looking for. Was like how can I learn these things? If you actually have a genuine curiosity about life and what things are and like our role in it, then like medicine has an important place in that, or could have a particular place, and have things to say about how to seek balance. I can't remember where I read it, but there's a curious thing, like if you look at how we learn about diseases and how we learn like what Western medicine is built on. It is this. I'm going to say that the fundamental idea is that we look at diseases and how they are and how they function, and if we learn that, then maybe we can learn how to remove them. But it doesn't really ask the question, like, is a healthy human being just a being where we have removed the diseases? So that question, like, is never really looked at, or if it is looked at, it's only in passing, and that's a problem if we're actually interested in is answering that bigger question, like what is a human being and how do we invoke health in a human being, not just the absence of disease, but an actual functional human being who can respond appropriately in all situations. Then there's like the physical development side, which is a big thing for me, like physical training. How do we actually do that, and what is the interface between that and disease, and all these questions. So I didn't get that answered in medicine, and I saw that was not part of the conversation, and what I was looking for at the time, like that was not there. So I realized through that experience that I had to look elsewhere. And as a young man does, you go on the internet, you seek out other people who have a similar outlook as yourself on things. So by happenstance, I was into gymnastics, strength training at the time, which was like very much in vogue, which is good. It's good to learn how to move the body with body weight movements. Not that I retain that particular idea, at least not to the exclusion of everything else, but I'll leave that aside for now. So I went through forums, as you do, and I found like-minded people in Australia, of all places. And yeah, I won't. This video is already a bit long-winded, but there's definitely, sitting here now and reflecting on it, it's definitely a case of like that initial impulse to train and to want to study and understand my own situation and the situation in society at large at that time. It's definitely like that role of, how should I say, doctoring. Like it is a medicine upon not just the individual human being, but a medicine on society. There's that thing with like doctor. Doctore is actually a word that describes a teaching quality, and that's something that I've learned about myself through this process, is to understand what my actual question is, what it is that I'm interested in, and how I want to bring it about in myself and in others. And that's just to say that that initial impulse to study medicine wasn't wrong per se. I could probably have, because the way our society is, I could probably have achieved the same in a much much more pleasant way, and had a more pleasant experience doing it. But that thing of bringing about a healthy development in a human being is a very important question for me. And yeah, I looked like everywhere that you can look in contemporary society, in the kosher circles, like you might say, the like what is acceptable, what sits there in the public realm. I looked at things, and there is a certain point where you have to kind of reject that if you want to get some clarity. Now, which is really to say that the underlying metaphysics of how we organize society and how we think and grok things, if that isn't brought into question and changed, then nothing can really change. But then once that's done, that's not to say that there isn't things done and things sitting in the public forum that is very much for the good and could be used to this end to further our self-knowledge, for the betterment of ourselves and for the betterment of everyone. So yeah, this trajectory of young man confused, accidents, learning physical training through rehab, and going through medical school, but also I subsisted on physical training. That's how I got through that experience. And now I'm coming to realize that that was not a particularly bad way to do things. It didn't have the clarity or the sensibility that it might have now. But then that's that's part of the whole thing. So yeah, that's some thoughts and reflections, making it look a little bit more in detail on some of the later stuff now. This is more just kind of where I came from and how these things fit together. So a beginning anyhow. What's up? Yeah.